In 1975, he directed Jaws. In 1978, he directed Close Encounters of the Third Kind. In 1981, he directed Raiders of the Lost Ark. And now, Steven Spielberg brings us E.T., the Extraterrestrial.
E.T. was on my mind maybe for 15 years, perhaps for a number of years, somewhat subconsciously, as a fantasy of mine, as a way to, to make myself feel less lonely in my life. And also, it was a childhood fantasy to tell the story of a best friend and a special friend who rescues a young boy from the sadness of a divorce. So E.T. sort of came about in stages for me.
I was the writer, and then I became the associate producer on the movie, and I think the main reason I was associate producer is so that I would feel obliged to show up every day, which I probably would have done anyway. But I was lucky enough to be involved with many different aspects of the movie as it went along, including the shooting, of course. But in pre-production, I got to sit in on the casting, meet all the children.
I'm keeping him. What is it? He won't hurt you, Gertie.
I was in town, and I had done 2 other things before that. And I was doing post-production work on one of these projects, and didn't really even have an agent. And somehow I got this meeting set up and went in for an audition.
Can't take him.
Well, I'm afraid I have to, son.
Can't take him away, he's mine!
But it's not my choice. The president asked me to come here and get him.
I don't care what the president says, he's my best friend! And you can't take him away!
Everybody in the room was in tears. I just remember turning to Henry and saying, "Okay, kid, you got the part." "Okay, kid, you got the job."
At first, he really just wants to meet you and get to know you, and I was so happy to have a grown-up that would listen to me talk, and he believed in my stories, and he loved them, and it made me feel so good and alive.
She's 6 years old, and she told me that she's going to do a 20-city tour in America with her punk rock band. And then she kept making up stories, and they got bigger and bigger and bigger and wilder, and she just blew me away. I mean, there was no second choice. I mean, Drew Barrymore was the first choice for this part.
You can't tell, not even Mom. Why not? Because grown-ups can't see him. Only little kids can see him. Give me a break.
Actually, interviewing with him was really good because he was saying, what do you like to do? And I said, ride bikes and, play Dungeons and Dragons. And he said, well, that's in the movie. And it was just a real natural, relaxing interview.
Well, I thought Robert was just a really good actor. He had stage experience. He was the most professional of all the kids. And he was the one that really, was the anchor because he had worked and he had been in front of people before acting, and he was real solid.
Mom, remember the goblin? Michael, what are you talking about? Just swear the most excellent promise you can make. Michael.
That's terrific. I didn't have to audition after. I think I had done my audition in used cars, and Steven is the master at casting. He watches people and has a real talent for taking whatever their quality is and putting them in the role that's right for them.
I chose Dee Wallace because Dee was like herself a kid, and I didn't feel I was violating my rule not to have adults in the film until the very end.
The first time I met Steven, I was brought down by a casting agent named Mike Fenton, who was a big fan, and he really tried to help me a lot when I was starting. And he wanted me to meet Steven for Indiana Jones. And he asked me, he said, "Can you wear a hat?" I said, "Well, I wear hats all the time." And he didn't really say much. They just had, Steven was in a room, and he gave me this fedora and told me that I was going to be a swashbuckling adventurer and just go in and meet the guy. And I walked in. As I walked in, I tripped over a lamp stand.
Had I made Raiders a comedy, I would have cast Peter Coyote to play Indiana Jones, but it was just a straight-out comedy because he was kind of awkward and clumsy and stuff. But I think he made a good impression on me, and I remembered him, and then those memories carried over, and I said, whatever happened to that guy that kept knocking things down? You know, when he came into audition for me and George for Raiders and gave him the part. Action. It'll be all right. Oh, would you like the flowers? Great. Good. Print that one. Last two also. Great. Next shot.
I really think that a big part of the reason the movie hasn't aged very much and it feels somewhat timeless is because, in a sense, it was never designed to be an effects movie. And so, even though we had to create that creature with the technology that existed then, Steven shot E.T. as a character.
It first started with myself and Carlo Rambaldi working directly with Steven, doing drawings of E.T. And in the early stages, we didn't really know what E.T. was going to look like because we were just sort of talking about him, okay? I think that we actually, at some point fairly early on, had set down some ground rules. That is that E.T. isn't a monster.
I remember saying to Carlo, here's some pictures of Albert Einstein, Ernest Hemingway, and Carl Sandburg. I love their eyes. Can we make E.T.'s eyes as frivolous and also wizened and as sad as those three icons?
The thing I really remember very specifically working with Steven was actually going into his office and his having all these books and saying, here, those are neat eyes, that's a neat mouth, look at this person. And I mean, they were really interesting because they would be some very, very, very old people. And you'd get these very old, wizened eyes and stuff, and he would say, yeah, he said, I see that, that's nice. The way we worked with this stuff is Carlo and I would go away for a day or two, and we would just draw a lot of stuff. We would just basically shotgun. And then we would go back to Steven's office, and we would basically pin the stuff up on the wall, and then Steven would look at them and say, well, you know, I like that, or I like a bit of this, or that's an interesting nose, or whatever.
Carl did a number of versions in clay, and I stood over Carlo and worked with him. I'm not an artist, so I didn't touch the clay, but I would say too scary, too Disney, too sweet. And finally, this creature did emerge from clay after a couple of weeks that was E.T., that became E.T.
I would hang out with Robert. It would be cool, you know. But when all the other guys kind of came there, then it was like I was the little brother trying to follow the guy around, which worked because that was kind of the character in the beginning, you know. And until I find this this alien, nobody really wanted to be my friend, you know. So, but it's kind of weird though. I mean, we had a great time, I think.
We did have a lot of fun.
I dreamed about there was real ETs. And you know, there's like one, and he was in the house playing with. All of a sudden, we heard this giant noise. We went outside, and there's this spaceship. No, really, I had this dream.
And then the thing with Drew worked out perfectly because that was supposed to be the relationship in the movie was us, you know, me torturing her doll or whatever it was. You know, that's how he treated her, and I'm very guilty about it.
Do it, Mike. We have to. Promise? Yes.
One of my jobs as associate producer and writer was to rehearse with the kids, and it was great fun because they're just a lot of fun to hang out with.
Robert, guess what happened today? Elliot's little speech that he says to the elf. I mean, is that plausible?
I don't like that either.
You do have to.
You have to play your character.
If you're using your charisma and you have to talk to somebody, then you're supposed to sort of speak in.
Yeah, that's the whole thing of it. You have to role play your character.
Words, right?
You don't just say my character goes over there. You have to role play him.
Right. Okay. You're an actor. You can do that.
Yeah.
And we'd rehearse, and they would catch me on misspellings, or they'd give me a bad time about some piece of dialogue, or they'd come up with something they thought was better. And I finally had to kind of show them who was boss, I think, at some point, tell them that I was the writer. They were the kids. They'd have to do what I said.
Maybe an elf or a leprechaun.
There's nothing like that, penis breath!
Elliot! Sit down.
It was very strange as a child with things like that, because I had been brought up where, you know, kids just didn't say those kind of things, you know. But it was really, I mean, in fact, I got away from saying holy shit. I just had to say penis breath, and that wasn't that bad, you know, because it was an anatomical term, I guess. Right? So I think Grandma could live with that one.
Well, Melissa did something that no one's ever done for me on a movie that I directed before or even since. And that is, she put every day's work on cards. She put the entire script of that day, not the whole week, just that day, on little IBM cards, 3x5 cards. And she put the dialogue in, and she put the stage directions in, and she transferred the script to small form. So these cards gave me amazing confidence. Rather than going through the unwieldy script and looking at my line script, which is full of notes and lines and everything, instead I had these little cards, and I was suddenly kind of liberated. I was unencumbered by the script and all that. I could walk on these cards in my pants pocket or my shirt pocket, pull them out and say, okay, this is what I'm shooting right now. And the cards somehow gave me the freedom to be able to go to the kids and say, here's what's on the card, and we'll do these lines, but let's make it up at the same time. What would you say if this really happened to you? You know, Drew and Henry, what would you say this was really happening to you? And I continued to try to get the kids to put their own lines in the movie. It's Gertie's line when she looks down and says, I don't like his feet. That's Drew's line.
I don't like his feet.
A lot of the kids, you know, found wonderful things to say that came from the truth of themselves that they were able to put into the movie.
Stephen wasn't afraid to let kids be kids and bring something new to the film. He had this table set up in Elliot's bedroom, and there was just all this junk on there, you know, just Star Wars toys and little gadgets and everything. And he said, okay, well, what I want you to do is, you know, you've brought him to your room, and show him what's on your table. You know, go down the line and just, you know, introduce everything you can.
These are toys. These are little men. This is Greedo, and then this is Hammerhead. See, this is Walrus Man, and then this is Snaggletooth, and this is Lando Calrissian. See? And this is Boba Fett.
It's great because we were allowed things like that. You know, we were allowed opportunities to kind of let it be told through children's eyes.
He'd go from thinking I was his new best friend to thinking I was his school teacher, because I would talk to Henry constantly. I talked to Henry so often while the camera was rolling, and while Henry was doing his dialogue, I would coach him while the camera was going, that when Henry first saw E.T. at the sneak preview, when I turned to him when the movie was over and said, how did you like it? He said, it was okay, but you've got to cut your voice out. Your voice is all the way through the movie. As Henry saw the movie, he kept hearing my voice directing him. 5 fingers, 1 finger, 1 finger, 5 fingers, faster and faster, guys, go. Okay, good, Henry, great. Now bring your head down slowly, just look at it. That's nice, Henry. Beautiful. He kept thinking that I was like his teacher, so for Halloween, to surprise him, I dressed up as a teacher, but not as a man teacher. I dressed up with the veil and the wig and the lipstick, and I became a total kind of new me. You gotta take me serious. It's Halloween, folks. I don't dress this way all the time. I'm not trying to get out of the Army like Jimmy Farr. This is actually my date for tonight with a costume ball. Ah, Miranda, what sweet fingers you have.
What do she will be?
Say it yet?
What? What is she will be? Say you or
Oh, in the closet.
Yeah.
Halloween. Remember Halloween?
Halloween was great.
We had such a good time, and Stephen dressed up as this old lady, and it was so brilliant.
He directed the whole day
Yes,
as an old lady.
Yes.
Yeah.
He would be, you know, behind the camera with his high heels, and he looked really great, too.
I'm enjoying this. I might never come out of this, as a matter of fact. There's a lot of advantages. Social advantages, another way. For one thing, look at all those pretty colors you can wear. I didn't have children back in the early 80s, you know, and suddenly I was becoming a father. Every single day I felt like I was Drew's father, Henry's father, and Robert's father, and you know, it felt good. And I think I have a big family now because it felt pretty good having 3 kids back then. Isn't this fun, Drew? Making movies, isn't it fun? Is this like better than just going to school and learning how to play volleyball and tetherball and stuff like that?
That's fun.
Yeah. Do they pay you for going to school? Your mom is going to kill me for saying these things.
I hope not.
I hope not, too. As a kid, I let all the frogs out of the science class, the ones we were supposed to dissect. I let about 5 of them go, and actually never got caught. So, you know, what the heck, I put it in the movie. But the toughest thing Henry had to do that he didn't want to do is on the first day of shooting, he had to kiss the girl on the lips. In the school scene where he stands on top of his classmate to be tall enough to kiss the girl right smack on the lips. And he didn't want to do this, and he didn't want to be a movie actor. At that moment, I saw his entire career, he was giving it all up.
Great.
Wait a minute, wait. She swung off.
That's cut. That's...
What problem was it? Swung too wide.
Okay, everybody back to your starting places.
In other words, you see, Henry, you kissed her this side. You want to kiss her this side. Your nose wants to be over here, not over there. Okay? John Wayne's nose was on that side of Marino O'Hara's face.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
You ready for more? Tiger? All right. He's cooling off. He's cooling off.
That was the one part in the script that I remember sitting down reading it for the first time, going, okay, spaceship, cool. Alien, cool. Kissing a girl, no way, I have to do this.
Those problems and those issues were always there, and because we were dealing with real life, you know. We were dealing with an alien that all 3 young kids believe was real. Despite seeing the operators, the special effects technicians in the background, despite the kids catching out of their peripheral vision a pull of the lever means a blink of the eye, they still, all of them, believed that E.T. was real.
Stay with me. Please stay together. I'll be right here. I'll be right here.
I had worked so much with the E.T. and the character, and it all started to become very tangible to me, where I could just draw on the actual experience, what was going on in the scene, which is something that's very, very special, I think, when you can do that, because it makes it all the more real. You're not pulling something from a previous experience, you're drawing on the there and now.
Quiet!
It's still beef down.
Okay, let's go. Okay, let's go.
Oh, yeah. Mom!
I don't think tears have ever been that readily available to me in my entire life.
Okay, you want to identify with that?
Yeah. Wipe the doll's face, too. Thank you. Movies are so sad.
Biggest actor of them all.
You know, I think it's going to be, it'll be sadder if it's happy sad. You know what I'm saying? And I think you'll feel sadder if it's more you're trying to cover that up. You're trying to cover the sadness with some happy talk to E.T. Like, remember when?
Yeah.
Remember 3 weeks ago? Remember when you first came into the house with me and I showed you Guido and Hammerhead and
Trying to hide it with a
Snaggletooth?
smile.
Trying to hide it with a smile a little bit, yeah.
He's an incredible sculptor of a story. You know, it's very, that was a very important moment in the film, you know, and I think that in his hands, he knew what to get out of us.
Kenny, he's a man from outer space, and we're taking him to a spaceship.
Well, can he just beam up?
This is reality, Greg.
It was always very real to me.
Yeah. It was amazing once everything was set to go and the cameras were rolling and you were in the scene, everything was incredibly real. Probably the goodbye scene.
E.T. is going to put his hands on your shoulders and he's going to bring you in for a hug. And you'll hug this side of E.T. You'll have his hand on this side and you'll just hug for a while. I'll just have you hugging for a while. And then you'll separate, and E.T. will point right to your forehead, right between your eyes. And he says, right here. He says, I'll be right here. And you'll reach out your hand, you just sort of touch his cheek. And he has a little tear in his eye, just pretend there's a tear, then you'll wipe the tear away from E.T.'s face. And we'll play it that way. Okay? Real softly and gently, and no rush. I think it was good to shoot the movie in continuity because you can't say to a youngster, we're shooting the last scene first and the first scene last. You can't say that to a kid. It doesn't make sense to them. And I wanted them to be so caught up as themselves and as their characters by the time they say goodbye to E.T. that whatever emotion happened there would happen on take one and would be genuine emotion. And every single shot you see of Elliot crying and hugging E.T. and saying, I'll be right here and doing this, that's all take one. The sneak preview of E.T. was a religious experience. It was emotional, it was loving, it was generous on the audience's part, and it was a love fest. It really was. And you know, you never know what you got until you show it to an audience for the first time. And I didn't pretend that E.T. was anything other than a kids movie about kids, for kids, of kids, by kids, even by. I was still a kid then. I still am a kid now. What the hell?
I remember Stephen sitting next to me and kept pounding on my leg. And in fact, I had black and blue marks because he kept squeezing and pounding, going, they're laughing, they like it, they like it. And it was overwhelming. I see all these kids it was the kids primarily, to see the reaction they were having. And then at the end of the movie, everybody at a preview audience, they're all standing up and clapping and stuff. You just don't ever see that.
Everybody paid complete attention, and there was a real feeling of identification. You could just slice the atmosphere. And it was just a wonderful, tender experience I'll never forget.
I think we had a couple of genuine conversations about sequels. As I recalled, we were going to create another character called Joe, who was going to be a long, spindly guy. He was sort of going to be like the Fred Astaire to E.T.'s Gene Kelly. And we had fun sort of playing around with the idea. But at one point, I actually remember us sort of shaking hands on the fact that there would never be a sequel.
On many levels, this is a story that was very, very personal to Stephen, and I think he always felt, and I think he was right to feel this way, that it would cheapen the movie and the experience of the movie and what it meant to him and what it meant to audiences to just go try and duplicate the movie in some way. And on so many different levels, it was an experience for him and for all of us that we weren't going to duplicate.
I never made a sequel to E.T. because I can't ever make an E.T. movie as good as what I did. I mean, I would only shame the memory. I would only show people the flaws. E.T. isn't a mechanical cottage industry that invites further adventures of E.T. and other kids on the planet Earth. It is a one-time event, and to do 2 or 3 or 4 movies based on that one character is creating a franchise that I didn't, frankly, think was the honest and right thing to do. I think it was a one-time event in my life. It was a one-time event, I think, in a lot of people who saw the movie's lives, and there was no way to replicate it with another movie. I could only further denigrate the memory of the first one by doing a second one. So I've just held out all these years, and I don't ever plan to make a sequel to E.T.
Alien I have ever met and seen.
What do you think about all these people? You think they're going to like the movie?
I hope so.
Look at them all. There's a lot of people here.
Yeah. Last time, remember how far, I think it was around the block. I think it was, wasn't it? It was.
We were really young, and our whole lives changed, and we couldn't go anywhere, and all of a sudden you couldn't eat, a meal without somebody coming up to you, and trying to embrace life on that level, I think was hard, being as young as we were, but I know that, we did it really well, which is really cool.
I don't know how much it changed me because I've never lived without having done it, so I know that it changed a lot of things for me, and it opened a lot of doors for me and did a lot of good.
I think that it afforded so many opportunities that I know I certainly would never have had without it.
It opened me up to more personal stories. Color Purple followed soon after that. Then came Empire of the Sun, and finally Schindler's List. It was, in a way, a ladder on a course of a kind of personal movie about human characters and human exploits and the human condition, as opposed to the other movies, which are much more, adventures and films like Jaws and the Raiders films and Jurassic Park. So my career sort of gone, on 2 different roads that parallel one another. There's this kind of film, there's that kind of film. And I think E.T. gave me the courage to start creating that kind of film. Lovely cut. Beautiful. Beautiful. Lovely. Like that.